Meeting to order September 9th. My name is Kelly Rosecrans, chairperson. Can we have just a rounded table and self-introduction, please?
Dawn DeSorsi, staff. Chris Bartek.
Lee Tall, commission member.
Steve Colt, Alderman.
Tom Marie Waldron, newly on the committee, replacing Lee Graff.
Craig Braun, commission member.
Okay, and we have some, yes?
Brian Gruskowski, Deputy Chief.
Andy DeWitt.
Scott Kellogg.
Paul Vaught, Public Works Superintendent.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Our first item is the approval of the September 9th, 2013 minutes.
Make a motion to approve the September 9th, 2019 minutes. Second.
Motion I see, second by Craig to approve. All in favor?
Kelly, just a question on that?
Yes.
And I apologize, I grabbed the wrong packet when I came, that's why Jennifer just brought me in an update, or a new agenda.
Yep, sorry.
I left mine at home, I grabbed the wrong one.
That has all the attachments.
I'm not on the, just a question on the minutes, not questioning the minutes, or what was there, but is there any update on sculpture, I think, thing? Have you guys heard anything?
We haven't heard anything on that. That was, nothing
Kind of,
brought up on that.
I don't,
So,
whatever, okay.
so not at this.
We identified representatives about all we did.
Right,
Right,
right, and I
right.
just wondering if we, because it was left, I think, in limbo even when they meet, or gonna meet, or what was gonna be, if I remember
I
right.
haven't heard anything to do about
Right.
it.
And nothing's, okay.
Hasn't been
It's
anything
kind of,
brought forward or anything.
hopefully we're not all of a sudden something
Yeah,
drops
Right.
out of the sky and they want something,
yeah,
you know, without
quick.
going, yeah.
Right.
And that's the only reason it's the only reason I even bring it up.
Okay.
Because I don't
We
question
haven't
it.
heard any.
Minutes are there.
Okay, so minutes were approved, and it was, okay, all in favor? Opposed? Ayes have that. Number 3, discuss the policy for determination of closure of the state park, or the skate park, due to issues with patrons. I hear we had some issues over there. Can anybody follow on that, or what had happened over there? Or-
Well, I'm Deputy Chief Brian Gruskowski
Okay.
from the police department. This is just the CAD sheets for this summer, from May on. There's 25 of them here: incidents, disturbances, fights, inappropriate behavior, vaping, drugs, or suspected drugs. 8 within the last month, September. And I wasn't there when the original September 15th incident happened. But from what I understand, there was a runaway that they were trying to catch, who they had to wrestle with, and one of our officers got actually hurt doing that. And then also the crowd of people that were in the skate park were acting in a way that the officer thought they were going to get aggressive with him. So at that time, the shift commander determined that the park was going to be closed. And ultimately, you're the board, and whatever policy you guys set, we're willing to work with. I don't think that there's anything set right now, at least we're aware of. But the sergeant at that time thought it was safer to close the park and get the kids out of there instead of letting it continue. I have all the different incidents. A lot of them are juvenile names, so I can't just share these, but I can just have the staff that I'm aware of.
And I can say from my perspective as a commission member, because Andy DeWitt, who's in attendance, had sent an email to commission members questioning the closure of the skate park and supervision of the skate park and so forth and so on. And my response at that time was simply that, hey, I didn't even know it was closed. And then I saw on Facebook, I think it was on the PD Facebook page or something, coincidentally that same day, that it was closed. And then my response to Andy was simply the fact that the commission isn't aware of when the skate park is closed. And Matt had followed up with me too, indicating that he had reached out to, or that law enforcement had reached out to him, and they kind of collaboratively made the decision to shut her down.
Must have lost the signal there. Hello?
The line dropped. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
All right.
You missed a great diatribe, Zach. It was really good. But anyway,
Keep it.
the point is that, like I said to Matt, and I'm not sure about the other commission members, because I just said that I'd asked Dawn that it be on the agenda for discussion. so that we can talk about it, but I have absolutely no issue as a human being or a commission member that says that if law enforcement dictates that the skate park be closed because of issues, I've got no problem with that. I think then what we need to do long-term is a broader question, right? And after hearing from Matt that we had an officer that felt it could have gotten out of hand, then maybe that is a good reason to shut her down, and I don't know that any approval needs to be sought aside from whatever that chain looks like. But I think it still warrants a discussion because just like we talked about before, when it was raised about restroom use and damage and vandalism, that kind of thing, we talked about, okay, what do we need to do to get it open again, and we solved that problem. So it's not about whether or not the law enforcement has the opportunity to shut it down. I would argue they have opportunity to do that anytime, and I've got no issue with that. But what do we do long-term with supervision? And then, coincidentally, there was follow-up conversation around what the commission already took action on, which was the installation of surveillance cameras at the skate park. And that's in process from what I understand as well. And maybe that is a piece to the puzzle, or maybe it's not, it's only pieces, there's more to the conversation. So I wanted to share that as well.
Andy?
Just want to make sure that, number one, everybody did receive my email and had an opportunity to read it. And I want to make sure that it's on record in terms of what the intent of my email was. It certainly was not directed at complaining about law enforcement shutting the skate park down. I absolutely agree with Brian and with Craig that it's absolutely imperative that law enforcement has the right and the discretionary power to make that decision when things are unsafe. The whole point in writing that email was to get this conversation started in terms of how do we make that a safe environment. And in terms of my perspective, that is a simple solution of making sure in some way, shape, or form that there is supervision there. I've worked with teens for 40 years in this age group, and I can tell you, it doesn't matter if it's at the skate park or anywhere else within the city, if you have that age group gathering without supervision, this is what you're going to get in terms of erosion. That skate park opened in 2002 with the understanding that the young people, there were 13 young people that were in junior high that agreed to do some research and approach the city and do their homework and the fundraising to put that park together under the supervision of myself and some other adults. At that time, the city agreed that once that park opened up, that they would take on the responsibility of staffing it, maintaining it, whatever it took. That has not happened. And that's why we're at where we are today. Is it a problem? Absolutely. We've got kids over there. My wife and I walk past there almost daily. And you've got kids that are standing up on that platform and they're teaching younger kids how to box with boxing gloves. And that's just one issue. The language there is absolutely atrocious. I would not want my family going there, which is sad because, make no mistake, it is not the skaters that are causing the problem, the people that are actually using the park.
Yeah.
It's those that are congregating there. So if anybody has any questions, any suggestions of how we can meet that, and although the security cameras is a good idea, it helps as a deterrent, I caution the committee to think about the fact that without the rest of the pieces in place, those cameras are a reactive measure, not a proactive measure. They will be used to surveillance and watch problems that have already occurred and then try to address those issues as we've done for the last 30 years in any other law enforcement situation with camera usage for any other investigation. So yeah, it's needed, I agree, but it's not a cure-all. Thank you.
I have a question too. So one of the things, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I have a question about, because when you stated that, Andy, the thing that I thought of too is what city employee we're going to hire that if law enforcement feels that they're in jeopardy in a circumstance, right? Who are we going to hire to stand over there? I think about my own people, right? Our business is 5,100 kids in the Rapids area. And kids without supervision do kids sort of things, right? They make bad choices. But you know, we rarely find ourselves in circumstances where we feel we're in safety is in jeopardy and so forth, but we had law enforcement make that determination. And so what is a value or a valid approach, right? Because just an hourly, you know, minimum wage sort of city, somebody on the city rolls coming to sit there and observe or supervise, I don't think is going to solve the problem either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at this stage, it has eroded to the level that your problem that exists there is a serious issue. That's absolutely correct. However, with that being said, if you hold teens to the highest expectation, they will meet that expectation.
Oh, absolutely.
Right now I took on the position of teen director at the Boys and Girls Club. We see some of the same teams that are hardcore within that center that we do within the city. And we hold them to a higher standard. And if you continue to do that, they're gonna meet those expectations. Are you gonna have problems and misbehavior? Absolutely. But if you stay consistent and you address those issues, you will get the desired results that you want. But it's gonna take a concerted effort, and it's gonna take time to get to that level because of the 17 years where this thing has eroded to. So you're right, it's not a one person, put a person out in the park. It has to be some supervision, and it has to be with individuals that understand this age group and understand that they have to be assertive and that they're gonna need the support of not only the commission, but the police department. The entire city is gonna have to be behind whatever's decided and whatever's moved upon. And the first thing to do is not to engage, if you have serious behavior over there, is for not an adult to necessarily engage it if it's at that level, unless someone's actually physically getting hurt, is to identify when those triggers are starting and get a hold of law enforcement immediately and have law enforcement come in and
Right.
take care of the issue. But you have to have somebody that can recognize when problems are starting to arise, not when they're already in full swing.
Steve, I think you were next.
Yeah, got a couple thoughts on this here. One piece is the being proactive measure, and I certainly agree with Craig that hiring somebody to have them sit there and, for lack of a better term, babysit the park might not be a fix, because that's something you have to budget for. But we do have a city asset that I think that we could use, and that would be our auxiliary police, as they have availability to do so. As Brian, correct me if I'm wrong on anything here, but they are a volunteer force. Most of them are going to training to be full-time law enforcement officers. They do have availability to drive a patrol car down there and sit. And one thing that I know about law enforcement is just generally when you have a uniformed presence down there, that is a deterrent for crime. And I also believe our auxiliary police have to meet a certain number of volunteer events per year. I think it's like 11 or 12 per year that they have to do. So it kind of be, to use that approach, it'd be a win-win. You're having somebody at the skate park that they're doing it on a volunteer basis, so you're not budgeting for anything or having to pay for anything, but you're also having a uniformed police presence down there. I'm not saying every day, but as our auxiliary members would have availability to do so, just to have an increased uniform presence down there would help. Granted, the auxiliary police aren't armed or anything like that, but I do believe they carry pepper spray, so they would have, in the event of a fight, they would have an ability to defend themselves. But also, they do carry the two-way police radios, so they have the quicker line of contact if something goes wrong, but they could call in a full-time officer. The other thought I have on this is sometimes when you have a same person causing problems, I know like some of our retailers around town, if you have a same patron going into the same store constantly causing problems, the store subsequently ban that person from entering that property ever again. The last thing I'd want to do is take a park away from a person, but then again, if you have the same individual that keeps having the negative contact with law enforcement on a reoccurring basis, I would probably think that it would be worth exploring the option, depending on the severity, if it's a first-time offense, to say, hey, you're done with this park for the rest of the season, otherwise if it's minor offenses, like a 3 strikes policy, like, you know, if this is your first strike, we catch you 2 more times, you're banned from the park for the rest of the season. That's just kind of my thoughts on it, on how to maybe fix things at the skate park and make sure that it's there for the kids to use.
Good point.
I have 2 points. I agree with Steve about banning the students. And we do have a nuisance ordinance. And that's an umbrella ordinance that can fit this case, where if you have a student that's a problem, you give them a warning or what have you. Second, the third time they have to go in front of the judge and they get fined. The other thing, I think your problem is more encompassing. We got a climber there, and the new climber is going to be attractive to a lot of these kids. So it's not just the skate park, you got that whole park. And so whatever solution you have for the skate park, I think the problem is going to move over to the climber. And so a camera and so forth, I think you have to look at the whole entity and not just the skate park.
You're talking the water parks?
Well, there's a climber near the a new climber near the stadium. It's
I don't
just
know what that
outside.
Playground.
A playground.
That's a
kind of.
Oh, okay.
It's 3 stories high. Some kids could sit up on top. You're gonna have kids, okay, we're having a problem at the skate park. You can't be at the skate park. Guess where they're gonna go? They're gonna go over to this climber for kids. And you're gonna have young kids over at the climber, plus these kids moving over there. So I think your problem is more encompassing than just the skate park. You're just gonna move the problem. And I don't have a solution. I like the idea of banning and the nuisance ordinance and have that in effect, because we have it as an ordinance in the city. But it's something to think about.
But that could spread into the aquatics park also then. That might could just be a virus here. So.
Yeah, so it's a bigger problem than just the skate park.
Well, I see it's hard to ban somebody from the park because it's not manned 24/7.
Right.
So it's not like you come in, register, and then you go to the park. So we don't know if you're banned or not until the problem arises. You know,
Somebody would have to evaluate surveillance or staff it to know that, you know, here's a list of people that aren't supposed to be here.
yeah,
That would be tough for tracking.
it is, and you know, we gotta look at the number of occurrences before we make, you know, before we man a park like that to make it worth it. You know, at this point, you know, what are the number of occurrences this year so far? You know, we have to look at those before we decide, okay, maybe it's worth our time to man it, you know. Otherwise, we're just throwing money down the tube. And even with volunteer, you know, officers being there, that is good, but will that stop the problem? Like Mr. Kellogg said, you know, the problem just keeps moving to a different place. We aren't going to be able to solve that issue unless the kids that use it are more responsible, you know, in reporting that to law officers. Because it makes no sense for us to put somebody there and then the problem moves to a different place. Now what are we gonna do? Are we gonna put somebody else there too? You know, it just keeps moving. So we have to look at the situations and think on it before we decide to just put somebody there.
And I was just thinking too, on the upside, it's October, and clearly the skate park's use is only probably the next few weeks before it's almost intolerable to be out there anyway, but so we've got time to make some decisions before spring rolls around and summer and the prime time to use it. You know, we can be thoughtful about what we got going, and I agree with you, Lee, you're not gonna have, you know, how are you gonna do a check-in, check-out procedure, and are we gonna really ask law enforcement to review like park video to determine if people should and shouldn't be there? I mean, that would not be a good use of their time. So it's more complicated than just hiring a person or putting in surveillance cameras. And it moves around, like you said.
Are a lot of the occurrences the same individuals? Or, I know you couldn't tell us who they are, but I
Yeah,
mean,
there's,
are they?
it varies.
Oh, okay.
Some like, I have just the cover sheets, so I don't have some of the name sheets. Some of the names are on here, but it's generally similar age groups.
Okay.
You know.
Steve?
I just wanted to clarify that basically the point of if you ban somebody from the, it's not asking the police department to sit down and go through surveillance videos and be like, aha, John Smith was in the park again today. It'd be like, the person's banned, they're informed you're banned from the park for the season, and then subsequently, if they're back in the park causing problems, then it's an additional charge that law enforcement, oh, you're banned, so now you're trespass as well.
So it'd be identified after they had a second or third or fourth issue.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's what the nuisance ordinance. After a police officer would go over, get the person's name, maybe take a picture of the person and so forth. Actually, after the second or third one, then they get fined.
Okay.
And then the fine will kick in, and now they're starting to think about it rather than, but I think the interaction between a police officer and those students and having them warn and notice of the nuisance, and their parents get informed about the nuisance ordinance, I think that might curtail some of them. It won't curtail naturally all of them, but usually there's just certain ones that you want to deal with. And you deal with them, the others will go away, I think.
Yep, that's true.
This is Zach. I've got a concern not about what was discussed. I think it goes back to what the last time this was on our commission agenda, and that pertains to the communication of how and why. I think the communication in this case was sent from the police department, and there was a misunderstanding amongst the public that it was as a result of certain behaviors at the skate park, not so much a precaution around maybe the safety of others and that sort of thing. So I think and I don't think anybody would disagree who has the authority and why they should or shouldn't have the authority to shut it down. I think in this case, the communication wasn't clear to everyone around what happened. So I'm glad we're talking about a lot of the future long-term pieces. I don't want to get the most recent situation lost, and that was the need to keep everyone informed, so we're all empowered with the right information about the situation. So I just wanted to make that comment that in the future, the commission and certainly myself and other city officials, all the persons are aware that the park was closed and maybe it was out of precaution or out of safety. And I think also on the going forward piece, if it was punitive that the skate park was closed, that is also communicated. So that way our school resource officers and anyone else can be empowered to make the right contact as well. So my comments are purely on the communication side of things.
Yep, that makes sense, Zach, because reaching out to the kids and the families involved is what makes the most sense, and that'll get change to occur.
Exactly.
How much longer is the park open till? What's the deadline on that?
Usually it's a hard frost, I think.
Yeah, weather dependent, there's a pump in the bottom of that
The big well.
bowl, so they're always concerned about that freezing, so. In the past, the history's been just depending on where the weather goes. If we get that Indian summer in November, sometimes they'll keep it open for a few weeks into November. It just depends on.
It's usually kept open as late as we really can. So,
When it's open, is it open 24/7?
or are there set hours? 11 p.m. I think is technically the closing time for all of our parks. So.
And those lights, by the way, just adding, they have not been adjusted yet either, just as a point of safety and security. They're not coming on soon enough to adjust for our time.
Make a note of that.
$11 is there a curfew? Or isn't there?
Yeah, anybody that's under 17, it's a 10 o'clock curfew.
Most of these incidences, though, were like broad daylight, middle of the day, summertime stuff, right?
Yeah, it was daytime stuff.
Yeah, weekend and, yeah.
I also had another question. I noticed the skate park lights are off, and I don't know if it's just because they're all on the same circuit as the rest of the facility when the tennis courts were out of commission, but that might be something, Dawn, you may want to check into with staff.
Yep, I'm just going to send an email to Matt. We'll check on that tomorrow.
Is this something that, I mean, Do we keep the park closed until we come up with a solution?
Park's open
It's
now.
just open.
It's open, back open.
Has there been issues recently, Brian, that you're aware of?
The last issue that we had was September 30th, and September 28th, and September 27th, and
Okay.
21st. So
Because
since
just
the
from my
15th.
travels around, it's been quieter than it was like August, September, which had more people there than ever in my time, my short time here. You know what I mean? So something changed to bring kids to congregate there this late summer in September.
Yeah, it's just not some of these weren't the right ones, so they weren't the skating kids. They were.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I'd go by and there was a lot of standing around,
Yeah.
not really doing anything. Yeah. Well, I don't know, we don't really need to take any action, I don't assume, but my opinion, and we can do whatever the commission decides, but my opinion would be that we evaluate some potential solutions. Maybe it's auxiliary officers, maybe it's additional conversations with our school resource officers, maybe it's surveillance cameras, maybe it's a person that is hired eventually, maybe it's a combination of all the things we're talking about. But like I said, we have until spring 2020 to get something figured out and have in place so that we can continue to use the skate park.
Kelly.
Paul?
So in the last 4 years, to my knowledge, the only time that the skate park has been closed down has been twice. Each time is when it has been over a half a dozen calls in a short amount of time that the PD has been called to the skate park, which I think is what was happening this night also, is that it had been multiple calls, and then there was the situation with the child that had run away or whatever, where they tried to, help the person out or whatever. So just to the mayor's comment, I wasn't on call that weekend and I didn't receive a call for that, but typically whoever is on call receives a call from the police department notifying us that they were gonna shut it down or whatever is what has happened in the past. And whether it's ourselves or PD, we'll do a better job of communicating that to the commission members, because in this case that didn't happen. But in the previous one, they did at least notify Public Works that we've been having issues tonight, we need to close it, because it was just a matter of, the thought was, is if we close it down, the issue will go away or go to the neighborhoods or whatever. And I think in both cases, Dawn, you may have to correct me on this one, in this case too, I don't think that the park was closed more than that week. It was open the next weekend, maybe it was
Usually only a couple
10 days or
days.
whatever, but
I don't
that's
even
what
know if
we
it's that long.
typically have done in the past, was just
2 days, I think, wasn't it?
It was just a couple
Yeah,
of
it's
days.
just a couple days.
Because by the time I started asking questions, I think it was open again,
I think so.
pretty much.
I think it was closed on Sunday? Or Saturday?
That was one of the
It was
issues
open
too,
on
I would
Tuesday,
guess with
I think.
communication, is that that happened over the weekend.
Mhm. Right, I think it was a Saturday, actually.
Yeah.
And then we opened it again on Tuesday.
Yep, yeah,
I remember
I think
reading.
that's accurate. Anyway.
So just so that, we'll take that back and do a better job of doing that, to whether it's myself or Brian or whoever that has to happen. But, it is my understanding that the cameras for the aquatics facility are gonna incorporate the skate park, so that'll be all tied in with that system once that's completed next spring. And then to Alderperson Kellogg's comment, obviously it's gonna be just larger than the aquatics and the skate park. There's already that playground piece of equipment that's already standing and in place, it's not usable yet, but it's not gonna just be a football field anymore, that's gonna be there. So there'll be, that whole area will have to be incorporated in that, so.
Andy?
I really thank the commission, everyone in here, for taking on this issue and having this discussion. It's great to hear, it's very encouraging. I really like the idea, I'm not sure who brought it up, it talked about that, connecting that family and parent piece. I know Scott and Craig were talking about that, maybe Brian as well. And I would not only encourage that, but I would offer my assistance and help to partner with our liaisons. If there are teens that are identified as being problematic, that are within our school district and our system, I would absolutely have no problem teaming up with our liaisons and trying to meet with those families and have conversation. Be happy to be part of that.
Absolutely.
That would be,
Yep. with our school resource officers being law enforcement employees, but working with the district, it offers a unique opportunity to have those conversations, and I think we absolutely should, if they're our kids.
Correct.
Any further discussion, or this will be brought up again then throughout at our winter meetings here, so. That's it. Okay, thank you for all that input. We'll move on to number 4, which is the cameras out for this skate park. So Paul, you touched on that. Or the mayor, do you know anything about where all the cameras, that'll be completed when the aquatic center is finished? I'm sure.
Paul said it. I don't think I have anything else to add.
Okay, very good. Okay, we'll move to number 5. Establish a master plan to redevelop Robertson Park with the assistance from an ad hoc committee. Tom, who are you?
Yeah, this is,
You wanna go
I
in
guess,
that?
mostly because it came from me, but actually,
Thank you.
through the Public Works Committee,
Mhm.
actually had discussion on it, and it was felt that the duties of this fell upon the Park and Rec Commission, not Public Works, and that's why it was there. So I did turn in a referral to look at this, but also with this, it says to have an ad hoc committee, and what we'd be looking at, I think, is citizens that from the area of Robinson Park, but those that would be interested in what actually they see for a vision. Wouldn't have to be those within 6 blocks of Robinson Park, but within that have an interest in what they'd like to redo Robinson Park as, and I'll use that as a redo, do over it from what it used to, from. It was the crown jewel of Wisconsin Rapids, the park system, from what was there with the band shell, the shelter, and ball fields were added over the years. I don't know if Paul knows when they were put in. I don't remember when ball fields were put in, but anyway, it has over from 20. Actually, is June 11th, 2001, because it was 3 months before 9/11, I do believe. The first storm went through and wiped out a vast majority of the trees. For those that aren't familiar what it looked like back then, but maybe what it was 3 months ago, half the trees were taken out already a couple decades ago. The place was a woods, it was a forest, along with things that were there to be able to use it. So it's there are those that would like to see this park come back to life. Obviously, trees are going to have to be replanted, but the thought is not to just go and plant trees without some idea of what we want the park to look like. There is a disc golf course that's in there now, which uses trees as part of the course. That's what it is. It's not like trying to stay on the fairway necessarily of a golf course, but the trees are part of the course in this. But there are 2 ball fields. Both suffered damage. One a lot more than the other, and I'll say the north end, if that's the right direction, but the one that's up by the railroad tracks closest to that, a lot of damage. The other softball court field suffered damage. A lot of trees were lost, power lines were down. We went without power since the storm to the park. It was just an idea to get a group together from this committee, not necessarily the Park and Rec committee, but an ad hoc group, probably a couple from this committee, anyway, it would be, to see come up with ideas of what they want the park to be, how to resurrect it, the ball fields that are there, of what can be done or should be done. The shelters that is still there, I mean, and the band shell, should the band shell, thoughts are by some even to, of updating even such things as the band shell and that, it's been there for decades. Is there things that should be done to bring it up to? So it's just a thought of, I think, to get a group together. The entire park system and whatever in the city has been affected by the storm a couple months ago. But for this, so it'd be all to look at, but in this case, it'd be that specifically Robinson Park of what could be done and whatever. Obviously, things cost money, and so a plan, if there, a plan may be, whatever X number of dollars, but it may be something that could be done over a few years to put together. So you wouldn't, we wouldn't have to come up with $100,000 or whatever it be. I'm just throwing that number out, to do something. That it could be this and this and this to bring it back. But ball fields are going to have to, those things are going to have to be done to make them usable. And I think the question is that I don't know even how much use the ball fields have.
Right.
Especially the one up closer to the tracks. So is there what can be done or should be done? There are things I think to do. It's got to be brought back. It's got to be put back together for one to start with. But I think that to have a plan of what we really want that park to be. It is a gathering point. It has been for years, for decades. Actually, if the mayor's still on there, they actually had his youth council actually had their first outdoor movie night there. Actually, 2 nights before the storm went through. It was on the 18th, I think, on that Thursday is when their movie night was. So I mean, it has been brought, to do different things there. It's been used for family gatherings, Labor Day events, which when they had it, it packed the place. So it is a park system. It is a park. I think we cannot. To me, we shouldn't let it go. And so we got to do something with it to bring it back to life. Money's going to have to be spent at least to make it usable.
But right now, the parties that use it, I mean, RISA would probably have to be involved to find out what their future brings them for participants in their baseball programs. They're the ones that use the field. I think Assumption does. Assumption uses Robinson South. The city band has a board of directors that I've already talked to one of them that they have some input, I'm sure, on the stage. So would those people be involved? I mean, we'd have to include them.
Oh, yeah. To me, it'd be more the merrier, and with different thoughts of. I have no expertise in the band shell. What needs to be done, or what should be done to bring it, to update it, and that type of stuff. That's not my.
There's weekly performances there. I mean, every Tuesday night. So sure, some input.
But I think to get the ball rolling, I think it's at this committee, but it's for this committee, I think, to move it along is to get a committee put together.
I have a question. Oh, sorry, Tom.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Oh, I was going to ask if we wanted to use city staff, like our city planner, to kind of formalize and put together a framework, maybe facilitate the stakeholders that you guys are offering at the table, maybe having a city staff work with parks, city planner work with parks to help kind of assemble what the framework and what the engagement would look like. I don't know unless the commission wants to pursue a consultant to use MSA for the master plan at the zoo. I think that worked well, but we also used our internal resources to assist with that, so we didn't have to consultant doing all the work. But I guess that would be the question of whether or not, which path we want to take this. I think putting together a good plan, a framework, and how we're going to do our outreach would be helpful to make sure we get everybody that needs to be at the table.
You know, and I think, Mayor, we have people on staff even, as far now that, as far as what type of trees and what, to put in and put where, It doesn't have to be all the pine trees, which most of it was. It may, depending on soil conditions and that those people would have the expertise in, treat what type of trees to even plant in that. So yeah, staff to be involved if they can be in that, and to meet with the group, and again, so it's thoughts from staff of what can be or couldn't be, but I think for the committee to make a decision, whoever's on the committee to make the decision of then how to reapproach the city for funds to accomplish what they want.
I mean, that park could incorporate a lot of these pickleball courts that the city needs real bad, right?
It has been a thought of mine that
Yeah,
may be
yeah,
a spot
we're
for,
always-
different, and actually, when I didn't mention is actually there is, I think, actually supposed to be 2 volleyball courts, of which there is 1, I think only, but it's not a sand volleyball court. It's not, like the court should be. So
Well, there were horseshoes and everything else there at one time.
Yep, there used to be basketball hoops outside. There's nothing left. I think we took them out, years ago, all of it. So it used to be a lot of, a
Multi-use.
wide range of different things to do there. So. And my particular interest is that I live in the area, on the other side of the highway, but it's a park that's only a few blocks away. So for me, so for those that don't know where I live, I'm close to the park, and it has been a very nice park for years.
So Mayor, is that something we could get, you could have the city planner start work on, or is that what you were alluding to, or?
Right, I think at least to put together a proposal of what the framework would look like for engagement, somewhat of a schedule, and then, and I don't know what everybody, Tom's, interests are from the schedule standpoint. I'd have to see what that department's got on as far as a workload in the next, 3 to 6 months, but I would think that this could fit into that, their schedule. We wouldn't necessarily need to go outside for consulting services unless we're actually moving into more of the design, which I don't think at this stage we're designing anything. It's more or less we want to get public input. We want to maybe do an assessment of what the needs are.
Right.
As we add these new amenities to the other parts that we've talked about, maybe there's a shift in priorities for various things at Robinson from what it is now or what it was in the past. So yeah, I'm happy to facilitate that with the community development department and have our planner assist with putting together an outreach proposal on how they plan to engage the public, and then I don't know if we'll probably come back to this commission, and then publish that date for the initial meeting, and then go from there.
That would be good. Everybody okay with that? Okay.
And just in the short term, though, I think to make we have to make sure that the ball field, if it's to be used for softball next spring already, which is coming up, in the next 6 months. Hopefully we have spring again, that it comes around. But for that to be used for the girls softball, that we're gonna have to make sure that field is. That's the one that's something, and maybe Paul has something to add to get it ready.
So, I guess I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit or whatever, but the work at Robinson Park was kind of prolonged a little bit because initially, prior to 100% knowledge whether or not we were going to get FEMA money or not, but in the past, with the FEMA money, or when they declare disasters, you'd only get reimbursed for the overtime hours and/or contracted services. And so obviously, we spent about 3.5 weeks on cleaning up after the storm, and our construction crew also stopped for 2 weeks. So that staff was busy working on our street construction project. So in early part of, or the first week of September, we went to local contractors to see if they were available to assist us in cleaning up the park. And there was only one person that was able to meet the timeline that we had set. And then obviously we had the September that we had where it rained every other day, and pushed that time period back. So actually last week they moved into Robinson Park and started pulling the stumps and splitting the stumps, and we're hoping by the end of this week to have that work completed. But some of the things that Tom alluded to, you know, on the Robbie South, yes, that is where Assumption plays their softball, their home games, right? Call games. But prior to that, we've already contacted 2 fencing companies, and they have us on the schedule within the next, I believe it's supposed to be by the end of the month, to complete all of the fence damage that we have. Not just at Robinson Park, but obviously we have some street fences that were damaged due to trees falling. Our city garage was, I think we have about 1,200 feet of fence there that was damaged. So all of that work is supposed to get done prior to freeze up. And then also all of the buildings that are at Robinson Park, I believe are are covered by our insurance. And so I don't believe anything as far as building wise was damaged at Robbie South, but the North Diamond, the concession stand, and I think there's a covered picnic table area up there or whatever. Those received substantial damage, and it's our hope that sometime in the middle of November, early December, before we get the white stuff that covers all of our problems, that we'll have the structure up for that at least, and then we can work through the winter months. Because part of the FEMA, that'll be covered by your insurance or whatever. But part of the FEMA stuff is that you have to get the work done within 6 months of the storm happening. So we're concentrating on trying to get all of those dollars incorporated as we possibly can. So that's what we're working on, besides our normal maintenance activities that have to be done by November 15th. We're trying to get all of that stuff taken care of. But I'm hopeful that by the end of the week, all the stumps will be out of Robinson Park and hauled to a different site, and hopefully we'll have a good portion of the stump holes filled in and leveled off. And we'll try to even dormant seed that stuff this fall yet, so that in the spring, because obviously that's when a lot of the softball games take place, the stuff will pop as soon as the snow melts. So, but power-wise, the other part of the thing that we're looking at there is there's reimbursement for mitigating future incidences like we've had here, and so that's one of the things that we're looking at there is that can we somewhat redesign the lights and/or instead of possibly having overhead lighting, or sorry, wires, can we direct bury that so that if, you know, whatever there is 200 white pines that are left there, if in 10 years we get another storm like this, if we possibly can mitigate the amount of damage to the power infrastructure that we have in there by direct burying it and whatever. So that's kind of where the hang up is right now. Plus there was so much tree debris and stuff like that, I'm sure everybody drove through there, that they wouldn't have been able to get the wires hung again anyway. So in the last few weeks, we've gotten rid of most of the brush. Like I say, by the end of this week, I'm hoping that the remainder of the damage will be gone and we'll have things leveled off. So once again, by the end of October, hopefully we'll get the power back on and stuff like that. So.
Okay. I would then, if you're going to redo all the work on that, what we call that Robinson Park North, that ball field, I mean, we're going to assume that there will be future baseball there if we're going to redo everything. Maybe that's something we should talk to those people right now.
It's currently under Rice's lease yet, that
Okay.
property, or that diamond is used. Unfortunately, I don't believe that they use it as much as they used to.
I don't think so.
I think they use it for their 2 or 3 tournaments that they have a year, and that's about the extent of it. I don't know, Kelly, if you were on the commission back then, but I know there was a few issues 3 or 4 years ago when somebody else wanted to use the diamond or whatever, and they had to go through Rice in order to use it. So.
the big problem now is when they have their draft, they need so many fields to practice on.
Yeah.
And that's always been an issue in the spring for the coaches to find a place to play ball. But I guess maybe I can talk to them and find out their future for that Robinson North, because if that's all gonna get rebuilt.
But it is my understanding that that diamond still is
Used.
part of the Rice lease, so.
It is, yeah. Okay, thanks, Paul. Any other comments? We'll move to number 6. I think the group is here for the, we consider approval for Central Wisconsin Gift of Life monument at Legion Park. That was held here.
I have our poster board here. We've changed a plan since we last spoke with you 2 months ago. It's quite a bit more detailed than it was originally. Our original plan was fairly square, a little bit boring. We got Julie Shutter from Shutter's Garden Center involved, and she came up with a plan, which I think Dawn actually sent you guys a little bit earlier, a little harder to see on the email, but this is not necessarily going to be exactly the plan, but this is a plan that, it would very roughly be based on, very similar to this. So this, and my son did a very quick Photoshop job for you, so on your picture, that's a picture of the park that Dawn sent me, and then he just Photoshopped this onto there. So you can see, this is the existing picnic table area on your picture, and that picture is just from the other day that Dawn sent me. And so what we're hoping is that it would just really just contour along that existing area. And interestingly enough, the paver that's already there is from the Lions Club, and the Lions Club is actually one of the biggest supporters of organ donation in the state of Wisconsin. And so it's kind of interesting just how that fell in that area. So we'd like to just kind of envelop the Lions Club paver, if they're okay with it, right into our plan. So this would be a walkway with the pavers set down that are the pavers that we would be selling with the engraved pavers, and then leading into kind of a little branched walkway here. On this side is a big boulder, which is on this picture here, that Marshfield Monument is actually donating to us, and they would engrave our Central Wisconsin Gift of Life name on it, so people know, where this came from. And then over on this walkway here, we're looking at having a small bench there, really just a memorial type of bench, not necessarily a bench that we expect people to sit down and, have a picnic on or anything, but really just a memorial type of bench, which would be engraved in memory of Chris Stensberg, Wanda's husband, who was one of our original committee members, who this garden area is really kind of his legacy for us. And most of the money that is being put into this has actually come from both memorials at his funeral and after, and then also he was a girls basketball coach, assistant girls basketball coach in Nakusa, and so a lot of the money is money that they have raised and that they continue to raise to go towards this. And so this would be in memory of Chris. We've talked about a trellis here. I met with both Dawn and Matt Heidemann last week, and there are some concerns regarding potential vandalism if we were to put something like that up, so we'll have to revisit that. We are talking with Todd Lloyd, who's our concrete supplier, about would there be a way to maybe anchor something like that down to try to avoid vandalism, or also weathering, of course, of a trellis area. So that's kind of something that we're kind of looking at. These are all just examples of flowers that would be in the area. This is all, on the outside is all pavers going all the way around, and then the pathway is all going to be stamped concrete. And then what Todd will do is lay down a concrete pad underneath so that we can just pick up the pavers that need to be engraved, replace them back down right onto that concrete pad. So that's not really being replaced onto grass or mulch or anything like that. It would be really just down onto the concrete pad within the stamped concrete. And then the pavers going all the way around. Kind of made it into a kidney shape, which it's kind of cool. I kind of like that she added that in. And then the flowers that she chose so far anyway, and she will actually Shutter's Garden Center will be donating some of the flowers, make them as low maintenance as possible, along with this all being mulch on the inside here, so that it's as low maintenance as possible. And speaking of maintenance, if you look in your packet as well, there's a maintenance agreement in there. Really just a very brief maintenance agreement, nothing set in stone. It's hard to get a landscaper to commit to 10 years of maintenance, but we have a lot of volunteers volunteers, both through ourselves and through the Nakusa girls basketball team that have talked about helping us out as well with their volunteer time. We have Alex, who's going to become an Eagle Scout, Alex Boyd. And he's working at helping us with this for his Eagle Scout project, along with some of his Boy Scouts who would also be providing a lot of the labor when we initially do it. So I just kind of went through with the maintenance agreement and talked about what we would plan to do spring, summer, and fall to keep this area up, so that as far as the city was concerned, really just trying to keep this, all pavers along the outside like this, so that it's mow right up to the edge. You know, no concern about it being a raised structure or anything right there, so that they'd easily be able to mow around. So keeping the city portion of it very simple and easy to do. The only thing in the park that may be a concern, there's a small tree that actually with the Photoshop got covered up by the kidney shade. There's a small tree there that would maybe have to be removed. Other than that, there's actually plenty of room right there. Goes right up to the edge of the hillside. Yeah, it's like right underneath that. It's a real small tree. Otherwise, we would just start it right on the edge of that path and then go right up the edge of that current picnic area and just kind of head towards the road. The reason for the trellis and some of those and the monument were to kind of draw some 3D effect to it so that you can somewhat see it from the road, so it draws people into the area there. We do have the University of Wisconsin organ and tissue donation, who we work with closely, has committed to already put their stamp on this, along with Donate Life Wisconsin. And as far as we know, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but as far as we know, and as far as they both know, this would be the only area of its type in the state of Wisconsin specifically dedicated to organ and tissue donation. So it's kind of neat, something that would be very unique to this area, something that they don't have in any large city that we know of. The hospitals don't even necessarily have anything like this, and so that is our proposal.
You had a window in this too, didn't you? A time window, didn't you?
Yes, I turn
Yes.
18 in December of next year.
Okay.
So preferably this spring.
Yep, we would like to break ground on it this spring. And Todd Lloyd of AB Concrete is our concrete, and he's donating actually $500 of his labor. Plus we're working with County Concrete to possibly donate some of the pavers and such. And he would like to get started this spring if possible too, as soon as the weather would provide for that.
And you indicated last time you're pretty much ready to go.
We are ready to go. We would like to sell, Wanda has been working with Marshville Monument, who would be doing all of our engraving. And actually it's really hard. The reason we're going through with Marshville is it's really hard to find people to engrave a lot of these anymore. They don't want to engrave regular pavers at all anymore. They said they break really too easily. So we're looking at granite pavers. And we would like to be able to, both for their purposes and for our purposes, start to sell the engraved pavers over the winter here. And so they have a lot more time in the winter time to work on these things. They would prefer to be able to get some of the orders in right away, so that when we do the project right away in the spring, we already have a lot of the engraved, so that these aren't just a lot of empty pavers. So they already have, you know, the dedications, or people can do it in honor of somebody, in honor of a donor, in honor of in memory of a donor, in honor of the recipient, in memory of a recipient, however they want.
Is part of that, and I'm not asking you to change anything because it's pretty cool, but I'm wondering, is there a way to communicate if you're interested in donating organs? Please visit. Is that incorporated into this? So that
Yes, and we have talked about that, about what the best way to do that would be, whether that would be something permanent or whether we could put some kind of an area there where they could get more information. And yes, absolutely, we will definitely be finding a way for them to get more information on how to donate and how to be a donor. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. We, you know, the only risk we have with doing anything permanent is if something were to change. You know, if a website were to change,
you don't
or
want it,
you know, we don't necessarily want it to be permanent, and yet we want it to be somehow that it doesn't get vandalized, stolen, whatever. So, Alex, did you have something else? Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you said you had something. Tom and I actually had a nice discussion on Thursday night regarding, which I appreciate, you gave me a call regarding this, and you know, we talked about, we originally had hoped to maybe do it in Demetz Park, simply because of the proximity to the hospital, but concerns about flooding and concerns about space, whether we would have the room. And I think Wanda really liked, and you know, because we're doing it in memory of Chris, we really, you know, have tried to be as conscious of that as possible. And I think we both liked, but you really liked too, a little bit of the quietness of Legion Park, and yet it's still close to very, you know, very accessible, very easy to get to. We actually have been surprised how many times we've been down there, how many people are using Legion Park. Walkers, bikers,
That would be its own attraction
skateboarders.
down there. You wouldn't have the obstacle
Right.
course with it.
Right, right, and right across from that bed and breakfast, that beautiful bed and breakfast that's over there as well. So, it actually, we both said, where's Legion Park? Always. And it's really actually been kind of a neat thing. And one thing actually Tom brought up that he talked with Juan about and they looked up already was, did Legion Park have any, covenants, I guess maybe you'd say, about what could go in there, because it is Legion Park, but they didn't find anything, right, Tom? Okay.
No, it was a question I had, because I think before, the cart gets ahead of the horse or whatever it is, to make sure that it's, there aren't covenants or something, a restriction, and why did it become that, and, left the wrong packet at home. But I think, Dawn, you printed something when we were talking last week. No, but,
Yep.
on Legion Park, goes back to whenever, so, I think these types of things are something that this commission should be aware of, actually, of why parks got their name. Why did they become something? So that we don't do something that's, against why this park was created and somebody's name was put on it or a group's name was put on something, that we remember to look at these things before all of a sudden we jump in. I'm not opposed to it. My question is something that, and that's why actually when Demetz Park was talked about, it was something, and I think your group looked at it, actually, it's because it's close to the hospital, which
that was our original plan.
Which to me made sense. And there is, is there property, even hospital property, that could be acquired? So something,
And we talked about that too, yeah.
So something could, that it would be, could be acquired, so it'd be a permanent, something like that would be a permanent location, so that in 15 years it wouldn't be, we need this for expansion to do something else.
Right.
But the other thought that just went through my mind listening to this is that, again, and I heard your presentation a couple months ago, but to your knowledge that there's no other place in the state that has anything like this, that what we also came up with through our local firefighters, but then through other fire departments and whatnot, is down on the river, in our park down there by Bowles Creek, is that actually came up with a state firefighters memorial. That, there's no other thing like this. Is there some, could there be something that a statewide designation could be done, and also that then maybe some state monies could be, to have some type of a state memorial, statewide memorial for something like this. So, it's just things go through my mind listening, because it's a tremendous idea, and that, so I don't want to dampen the thing at all. It's just that there's thoughts in my mind,
And we did talk
of
about.
of where,
and
but
talked about-
of
yeah.
where, and and that type of thing.
And we
actually
did talk
listening-
about Aspirus, because Tom and I talked about that the other day. We talked in our committee meetings too about Aspirus, and about could we get land from them, for instance. We can't afford to purchase any land, as a committee, obviously, we don't have that kind of money, but our biggest concern with somebody like Aspirus was, as you know, and I work for Marshfield, so I mean, it's everybody's acquiring everybody as time goes on, and we don't want to get in a situation where Aspirus says sure, and then somebody comes along and buys Aspirus and they say, nope, pull it out, we don't want it there, we're putting a, cancer center there, or whatever. We just don't want to get in a situation where they say, 3 years from now, and I don't think that's going to happen, but, healthcare's changing all the time, so who knows who's going to purchase who, and that was our biggest concern about Aspirus or any other private, because we talked about the dialysis center as well, because Chris spent a lot of time there, and because that's very, very much ties in with this, but again, private property, the dialysis center is getting older, if they decide to remodel, expand, move somewhere else and abandon that area, would we get stuck into an area? The city just seemed to be the most stable out of all of the areas that we looked at.
Did you look at the park, like between the DOT building and the firefighters memorial? Is there any?
Yes, our biggest concern there was flooding. You know where the flooding
Mhm.
comes up next to the DOT building there?
Yeah. And into the roundabout.
And
If it's
Yeah.
like this year.
I was thinking a little farther
That would have to be
down.
further down.
Towards
You
the
were thinking,
playground.
Yeah.
you were thinking probably towards the memorial.
Yeah,
or
closer to the
further
memorial
down.
and by that
We
playground.
were
and
concerned about
after
getting
that
too
Hanson.
close to the firefighters memorial, right? And I know Todd said flooding would really be an issue with, or could be an issue with this if we got too close to a flood area because of the pavers.
The piece south of the DOT
Right now, the river.
have to come up
It was up
6 feet higher than it ever has.
Yeah,
To
okay.
flood from there down to the firefighters memorial. To north of the DOT, yeah,
Yeah.
there's issues there, but the piece in Ben Hansen Park, that's not Ben Hansen, that's.
Yeah, I
it
think
is.
it is Ben Hansen.
Yeah, in Ben Hansen, you wouldn't have any issues there from, like I say, from where the bike trail crosses Second Avenue to the firefighters memorial, that should be pretty dry, but.
What about that, you know, by the expressway, that island between the expressway and whatever that street is? Where they mow lawn all year and they leave the top unmowed because.
Oh, you mean around the expressway?
Yeah, on that hill there.
On the hill.
Because that bottom part is fairly flat and the trees were taken down by the storm. That's close proximity to the hospital.
I don't think people really frequent that area though. I think it'd be nice like for people walking
Right.
through here or walking through the Ben Hansen Park to be able to
Accessibility,
walk
yeah.
off onto this spur and read all the names
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that's one of our things, is we wanted to be sure people are
Steve?
visiting the area.
yeah.
I just, I understand Tom's point about finding, being cognizant of the names, but name of the park and what we put in the park because of the name of it, not jumping the gun. But if I recall the conversation correctly, Dawn did check and there is no pre-existing conditions on use for what can go into Legion Park. So I wonder why we're trying to find an alternate park for them to go into.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done their homework.
That's what we asked.
They've
We
done
talked
their-
about that piece last time.
Yeah.
They've done their homework, they got everything, it looks like it's good to go here. They have a very nice design that is well thought out, and it looked like it would fit well in that park and actually be a good enhancement to it. I like Tom's comments about if this is the only thing in the state that we have like this, about getting it designated as a state park, much like our firefighters memorial. I think instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, as long as we're good to go and they have everything ready to go, and we have a young Boy Scout here that's got a time constraint on this, I would make a motion to grant them the ability to go ahead and establish the memorial at Legion Park.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Motion by Steve, second by Craig to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm in favor. The only comment is that I was just, why I raised the issues or whatever, or question, is that my understanding from that meeting back in August was that Legion Park was what was considered, but it wasn't a definite, that was not a definite decision that was made by this commission. That was what was presented to the commission. And so my thoughts were, and that's why I called Jill to research in my own mind and whatnot on stuff, is that, and actually to look into if there are covenants of whatever to put, to do something, so that the, I looked at it from that location was open. But that was a preferred location, so I wasn't saying no to that, but I had questions that I wanted to resolve in my own mind.
Which were good, I mean, really, they were good questions, yeah, and things that we can, yeah, absolutely. And I can see, because this park is nice and open, and I know they've talked about maybe putting a stage there and such, so, I mean, I can see, when this does finally open, we will want to do some kind of a dedication to it. I can even see in the future having some kind of event there or gathering there or something, regarding this particular organ with organ and tissue donation. And like I said, both UW and Donate Life Wisconsin are pretty excited about it, just because they don't know.
That was gonna be my only comment were you guys aware of that performance platform? It's not a
Yes.
platform, it's a concrete slab that is scheduled to be put.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be further to the north and to the west there, whatever, so it shouldn't.
Yeah, and that's why we ended up where we were. We met with both Joe and
Yeah, I was
Matt
supposed
down
to be
there.
there, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay, that's okay. So, yeah, we met with them and they kind of went through everything with us. And then we had talked about doing something along the trail, but then Matt had told us too, the trail may change based on, however they end up doing things. And this stayed out of the flood zone. So really, when we ended up looking at it, and I think it was when we finally met down there with Julie, that she kind of came up with the area and came up with this design based on the area. So, yeah,
That was
we
my
did
only
discuss
comment,
that.
so make sure that you're
Yeah.
aware of that, so.
Thank Paul for that, because without my notes, I forgot that. But that was one of the things I wanted to raise too, wanted to bring up was about that stage.
Yeah, and as far as I know, they're
Supposed to
gonna
be
doing
going
that
in.
a little more.
I think you thought that was over here, I thought.
Yeah, I think it was actually down over
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
If you have your picture with your piece that's in the existing conditions, it's virtually down in the lower left-hand corner where that bench is.
Yep.
That's like
Yep.
the
Right,
bottom
vertical.
half of it, so. And that tree isn't there anymore either, that got blown over in the wind. No, it is there, never mind.
This picture, Dawn,
Yep,
they
this is
just took the
Friday.
other day.
Yeah.
Friday,
Or Thursday.
yeah.
It's
Or
there.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Thursday or Friday, yep.
Did you get your drone out, Dawn, or what'd you do?
They did.
Did you get the drone out?
Not me, but.
Nice.
She emailed me and said, get the drone out. And thank you, Dawn, for all of your help. Dawn's been invaluable in this. Any other questions for us at all?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's gonna be us too.
Thank you.
I love her kidding. I know.
Yeah,
That's neat.
that's cool. Okay, we move on to number 7, the update on the East Riverbank improvements, specifically the Mead Rapid View Park.
You had questioned the power there, was one of the
Oh, we,
questions that we had.
there's a group of us that do the maintenance on the clock tower, we're Oilers, and we just noticed that that's been out of power, and we were just assuming it probably, Paul, did it get ripped out with the construction over on the other side?
So I don't have an exact answer for you on that, Kelly. Todd Weiler contacted us a week and a half ago to get access because Paul Gross had gone in there to Waterworks and Lighting Commission to question that. And because Matt was on vacation and we didn't have the ability to access the clock bell tower, they just gained access to that, I believe, on Monday of last week. And so, yeah, I'm suspecting that that was hit by I don't believe necessarily by our construction activities. It may have been from the gas company running the gas main from the roundabout down through Veterans Park. But they are working on that to try to get, because Todd said in his email that it has not had power for a substantial amount of time.
Right,
So,
one of our people stopped over at the park over there and talked to, it was an electrician, I think, working on some pedestals, and he was assuming that, he was pretty confident that when they get everything hooked up, that's gonna be energized again. So we had, one of the guys did stop over there and just talk to us,
Yep.
Sparky, so.
So like I said, Water and Light has been working on it over the last week and a half or whatever. I just apologize, I don't have an answer for you, what the issue was, if it was hit and or just down because of the circuit for the streetlights being out or whatever. But it has been, or is being addressed, I guess, is the best
Okay.
thing, so.
And I think Matt mentioned that once they have access to the tower, they're actually gonna start there to search for
Where it was hit?
Where it was hit.
There's a number of us that have keys to that, but I mean. that's-
Okay, Matt was gonna get in touch with somebody this week, so, okay.
Yeah, so otherwise with the Meads Rapids View Park, obviously that was substantially torn up, number one, because of the East Riverbank project, but also because of the utility work that was happening on First Street. That portion of the project, it's my understanding that the has been completed except for the railing being installed, but all the concrete work and everything like that is completed. Shallows from Marshfield was in the last week doing the landscaping piece and touching up the areas that were disturbed as far as the seedings and stuff like that, so that'll all be dormant seeded. That won't pop until next spring as far as the grass goes. But we have fixed our sprinkler system, so everything on that end of things is running. So it's my understanding that that park, except for the railing installation, is completed, so.
That's good. Okay.
Sorry, I don't know if it was just the Mead Rapids view. But
that-
the East Riverbank, Yankee has all the, Yankee's the general contractor on that. They have all the concrete work completed. The light bases for the street lights were installed and done 2 weeks ago. And actually they have the light standards on them right now, so I think they're getting close to having all the wiring done. I know they were trying to, it's the same crew that's working on East Grand Avenue that's doing the park work too. What would you call it, the auxiliary power throughout the park for like when the aqua skiers used to do the street dance and stuff like that. That is all being redone. I think that work is supposed to start this week also. So then everything in the park will be completed. Yankee's down there building the what would you call that? The overlook in the park.
Balcony.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. The balcony in the park, and then they have the platform area sub work done for that, and they just have the decking to complete on that. And then Shells also is in there doing the landscaping and the mulch and stuff like that. Once they come in and finish grade the black dirt, the south half of that, we have to redo the sprinkler system because it was hit so many times that it didn't pay to try to find that. So we have to redo the sprinkler system in the south half. But we're ready for that work, just waiting on Shallows to finish grade it so that we can do that, so.
Just one quick addition, invite everybody to Demons Park on Saturday. Hopefully we'll have good weather, if not dry weather, some sunny weather, from 11:30 to 1 for rededication of that park with the design consultant. The folks that did the fitness park stations that the commission supported and helped finance, I think, some of the fall protection in that, all of that will be demonstrated on Saturday, and so hope to see community there, and want to make sure the invitation was extended to all of you.
You're cooking burgers, I heard, too.
I am, yeah. We're going to try out those new grills, some of the first grills we have on Riverfront Park.
Outstanding.
Yeah. And I've got to sign off, so hope everyone has a good night and go back.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you all.
Okay, we'll move, thanks, Paul, for that. We'll move to number 8. Maybe you can comment on this, the update on the storm debris removal. It looks like town's getting back in shape pretty good.
Yeah, like I stated earlier, we as the Public Works managers have made a decision with the FEMA monies, the storm damage money that's out there. You can, if you're extremely aggressive and get after it and try to get as much done as you can within the first 6 months, you'll get reimbursed for all of your expenses, whereas if you take your time to do it and stuff like that, they'll only reimburse you for overtime and contracted services and stuff like that. So as managers, we decided to get as much as we possibly can. So as much staff as we possibly can have been starting to work on putting city back together. Like I said, we've contracted with a fencing company, and they are scheduled. We signed the contracts, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, to get all the fences put back together. They just had to order materials. So that piece is in the works. We have a contractor, like I said, has been working at Robinson Park the last week, and that work I'm hoping is to be completed by the end of this week. which is working well because our construction staff has finished up our Chase Street project as far as we're gonna go, so I'll be able to move some of our people that we have on that project up to Robinson Park to, you know, at least eliminate the hazards for the guys that are playing disc golf and stuff like that, fill in the holes. And we'll get as much restored as possible so that in the spring of the year that starts to pop up. Otherwise, throughout the different parks, I believe Sandlot Park is pretty well cleaned up. We have some stumps and stuff like that up there to grind and remove. Ben Hansen and such, we're in pretty good shape down there also. So in talking with Matt, he feels as far as like tree damage and things like that, that we have 75% of that work completed throughout, not necessarily your issue, but throughout the city. We have a lot of boulevard trees that we're working with our concrete maintenance company that we have on under contract this year to get the stumps out of the boulevards removed, because obviously there's a lot of sidewalk and curb and gutters that have been damaged. So trying to get all that work done prior to November is kind of what everybody's putting their time towards or whatever. So otherwise, you know, we talked earlier about the north concession stand. That will be rebuilt by probably our staff as long as we have time. Otherwise, we'll, you know, it's just like everything. Everybody was busy before the storm hit, and now they're really busy. So to get contracted services in town, you know, obviously it's damage within town, so it's nice to keep the money in town instead of hiring outside contractors. So I don't believe in that, so I'm going to try to keep as much in town as we possibly can. So I spoke earlier about working with Waterworks and Lighting Commission at Robinson Park to try to mitigate some future damages, so that's where we're at with that. Hopefully, like I say, by the end of the month we'll have a decision on that so that we can get power back into those buildings right in time, obviously, to have them winterized for next spring. But I feel we're in pretty good shape. Staff has been working real hard and appreciate that. But I think we'll be in pretty good shape by next spring.
Very good. Thank you, Paul. Okay, we move to number 9 here. We're almost finished. Update on the Aquatic Recreation Center. That we can kind of see that it's progressing quite well. So you have some on that. Mayor hung up on us here.
Yep,
so.
no, that's fine. No, like you said, they're on a very tight timeline with that, and so they are working diligently to meet that time period. You know, it's amazing. You can start to see shape and stuff like that. I can't tell you the last time that they flew it, but I believe all the pools have been are in. I believe they are this week. They were hoping to fill one of the pools to water test it. To make sure that there was no leaks and stuff like that. I know they had called, they were working with, Joe had called me from vacation to work with Water and Light to get them a meter to be able to fill the pool, because they didn't want to fill it on a garden hose and get done in the spring. They would just fill it on the fire hose. But I believe that they were going to try to test the pools for leaks this week. Obviously you can see all the structures. They're starting to set roof trusses and things like that. As Alderperson Kellogg had mentioned, they have the playground equipment on the northwest side between the park and Witter Field, the ball field installed, and the fall protection, I think, on that is supposed to be installed this week. We had a punch list for them of things that they needed to be done that was completed today. So yeah, they're moving along. It's my understanding they're still hitting all their deadlines that they've set on themselves. I believe colors and things like that have been picked on all the different things. So yeah, it's starting to look like something. I believe it's their plan to get the roof on the main shelter before snow flies. So
Good.
Actually, and Scott, Alderperson Kellogg, had to leave here, but we actually were able to go with the mayor's youth council that met last week, and that's where they met, was at the aquatic center. To take a tour of it. Then they went over to the Old East for their meeting, but so they actually did go through it, and it's amazing. Last time I did take a tour, there were holes in the ground and, you know, foundations being built and whatnot, but actually to be on the inside. And being inside, I'll tell you, you go around the outside the fence, you looked at, there's a lot of, you know, it really looks like a compact situation, which it is. But when you're on the inside, there's a lot more room than what you think there is. I mean, but on the inside of that. And
Sure.
The walls are going up. As far as I know, we're still looking at a summertime, early, you know, summertime opening next year. So when things get going, and hopefully everything falls into place. And so far it is. So
Good.
it's coming along. It's going to be a great addition to the
Oh,
community.
yes. Super. Okay. Thank you for that report. Craig, did you take a look at the bill by any chance?
Yeah, well, as you can see, the total's only $3,152. $2,000 of that is from Arbor Vantage Nursery, which looks to be a tree removal, and I'm guessing a fairly sizable tree.
Storm damage.
Yep, from storm damage, and aside from that, I mean, there's nothing else really of any kind of remark, so.
Okay. Motion?
I'll move to approve.
Okay.
Second that.
Second by Lee, to approve, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And then the staff reports, I think, Paul pretty much touched on a lot of Matt's stuff, so I guess if everybody's okay with that, and Mary isn't here today, so we'll just go with that. I guess, number 12, adjourn?
So adjourn. Give it to Tom.
Who's getting it? Okay.
I'll second it.
Second by Craig to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Noes? Ayes have it. Thank you, commissioners, staff members, and public viewers as well. Good night.